Hello New World, I am going to be covering a mechanic in this video that I've seen a couple posts, one from one of our company members, and then I think I've seen a couple other comments on it, so I think there are other people that know this mechanic out there, but from everything that I've seen, I haven't really seen any videos on how to do this, and I wanted to kind of share the ins and outs of the mechanic and how it works, because this is just a quirk of the movement at this point. It's not really a bug, it's not really a cheat. It's just how the movement's working, similar to in other games how you might have b-hopping, or in Counter-Strike how you have surfing. It's just a quirky mechanic of the movement that has certain applications throughout the game. Um, right now, there's other than just using it, there's no weird applications that seem to give you any type of advantage from all the testing I've done, but we will go over the mechanic itself and kind of what I think some of the advantages are and disadvantages are, and where it may be useful, where it might not be useful. So, uh, again, at this point, I don't think it's a cheat. It's not a cheat. It's not a bug. I think it's really just something that the developers have the right to say whether or not it should be in the game, and it's up to them to either say it should be or to say it's not and do some way of patching it out. Uh, my opinion, people shouldn't be banned over this because it is just an aspect of the movement currently, and anyone can do it. And that's the reason I'm making this video, is so that people that don't know how to do it are able to learn, and if they want to do it, they are able to. This is something that I know when people initially saw it on my server, they thought it had to be some type of scripting, but then once we learned how to do it, we quickly realized that it's very repeatable and very easy. So we'll start out by going over the requirements of this. So there's really only two requirements to do this mechanic. The first would be to use a weapon, anything other than the musket. The musket's the only one that's not going to work with this. And the second requirement is to be a light equip load. This is going to give you the dodge roll, and that's what we're looking for this mechanic. So being a light equip load and using any weapon other than the musket. So to do the mechanic, it consists kind of three parts. The first is to lay down, the second is to dodge either forwards or backwards, and during the third part is during the dodge, you want to hit W and your lay down slash dive key at the same time, and your character will perform a dive. And people on our server initially had been calling it the worm dodge. I know some people had been calling it the dolphin dive, but it gives an interesting effect, and I will show you that now. So, to start out, I guess the other part of the first step is from the first prone position, you need to make sure that your weapon's out before you enter the prone position. It won't work if your weapon's stowed and you enter the prone position. You want to make sure that the weapon's out, so then when you enter the prone position, your character's kind of in this in-between state where it's proned and it knows it can't have the weapon out, but it also knows that you do have the weapon out. So all you're going to end up doing is dodging and diving. And that's what it looks like. So as you saw, I dove right at the end of the roll, and during the dive, I had extra momentum on my character. So that is the mechanic in a nutshell. So this can be tweaked in a couple different ways. So again, you can do it forwards and backwards, and the forwards one looks pretty much the same if I do it properly. Looks pretty much the same and gives you, from all my testing, a little bit less distance than the backwards one, which is why I think the backwards one's a little bit better. So the backwards one gives you a little bit more distance. Second, your character's momentum and rotation are actually very controllable during this. If you've ever done a dive, which most people have, you can't really affect anything during the dive, right? Your character just kind of dives forward, and whenever you land and you start crawling in a direction or moving in a direction, your character will turn that way. But if we get rid of the if we unhold the directional key right as we land, as you can see, we turned a little bit, but we didn't turn very much. Whereas with this mechanic, if there's two ways of doing this, so we can either start turning during the roll or at the very beginning of the dive, and we're able to rotate our character, or we're able to wait a little bit and actually fully change the direction of our character. So the first one, just rotating our character, looks like this. You're able to rotate your character really as far as you want. If you had more DPI, I'm sure you could actually rotate them a full 360 degrees. I unfortunately have low DPI, so that's a little bit more difficult for me. But you're able to rotate your character in the direction you want to go, and then proceed out of the dive as you see fit. This can be matched up. I like matching this up with the second dodge, and then coming out of the second dodge, giving you essentially 3 dodges worth of distance for the stamina cost of 2. Now the second way we talked about, you're able to change the character's momentum. Now this happens if you actually turn your mouse later during the dive. So if you start out doing the mechanic, and during the dive you start to turn, you're actually able to turn the character's momentum entirely. So as you can see, we started on a straight trajectory and then we arced over here. Now during the forward one, you don't have as much rotational control of your character. You pretty much always have control of the momentum. So if you do this forward, you're able to just control the character's momentum, which is pretty interesting, how controllable the momentum is, and I'm sure this can be used in a variety of different ways for getting around different things or trying to be evasive. So the other thing that I guess I didn't cover is that the mechanic is actually the distance, seems to be about the distance of 2 dodges. So if I line my feet up there at the end of those planks, then I dodge backwards twice. As you can see, we're roughly 2-3 feet away from the start of those planks. And then if I do the same thing just in reverse with this, and I do the worm dodge, and then I stand up here, as you can see, we're roughly the same distance away from the planks. But we only used 1 dodge worth of stamina, and we were able to get that far. Now, I have also discovered this can be chained in kind of interesting ways. So, since it seems to be shorter on the forwards one, like if we do that, it seems like there's more. We didn't go as far with the forward one. I like to use the backwards one, but as you know, a backwards dodge can be done by just hitting the shift key or your dodge key, and you'll dodge backwards, but you'll dodge backwards wherever your mouse is pointing. So if you're running forward and you dodge that, like you turn your mouse around and you dodge that way, you'll dodge backwards where your mouse is pointing. So since you only have to do this from a prone position and you don't have any control of the initial dive, a normal dive, right? You don't have any control of moving your character around. What I like to do is if you dive forward, turn around, dodge, and then do the mechanic, you're able to get kind of a streamlined forward set of this, just based on how accurately you can turn your mouse around and how quickly you can chain the mechanic. And then because you're only using the stamina of 2 dodges and you're effectively getting 3 dodges worth of distance, I'm not sure if this would give you some advantage in moving around the map, but I have to imagine that there's some advantage that you would be getting. Now I haven't tested if this is faster than just running and dodging or just running on a road, but it does seem to be pretty fast, and I have been able to kind of open a gap up in different duels that I've tested this out in. I've been able to open up a massive gap between me and somebody else, just by doing either the forwards chain or even just shooting at someone and then they start trying to close in. I'm able to lay down, do this, and then I now have 3 dodges worth of space between me and them, and by the time I lay back, or by the time I stand back up and turn around, my stamina is already almost full. So that's everything I really know about the mechanic. Now, just to go over quickly some advantages and disadvantages that I've really noticed. On the advantage department, it definitely seems faster than just dodging around. You're obviously saving stamina when doing this, and you're also able to change the momentum of your character, and that dive has the momentum of a dodge. So you're able to change this very fast momentum of your character. So you could kind of do weird things wrapping around trees or wrapping around rocks to avoid a situation. Um, but I would say the main and biggest advantage that I've really noticed that would be PvP oriented is that a lot of people just don't know how to react to this. It's very common that you're fighting someone and they're, rolling around and doing all kinds of stuff like that. But if you're fighting someone and they just out of nowhere lay down and then do this, you'd be really confused and wouldn't really understand what's going on. So that really seems to be the biggest advantage that I've noticed with this in PvP. Um, you don't pick up any iframes while doing a dive. You're able to be hit at any point during the dive. The only iframes that you have during this are during standard roll iframes, which anybody has whenever they're doing a roll. And since most of this movement is not rolling um, or dodging in general, you don't have necessarily as many iframes as someone who's just dodging. So uh, that's the department where we start kind of getting into the disadvantages. It doesn't really give you any benefit. You lose iframes by not just dodging, and then also if you're not consistent with the mechanic and you're not able to perform everything properly, you can kind of get yourself stuck in weird situations. Like again, if you're trying to create space between you and someone else, and you do this and you spam this and you end up laying down and then standing up, and you kind of don't like do it properly, and maybe you come out crouched and now you're moving really slow, or you end up doing what I just did there and you lay down and you stand back up. Sometimes you can't cancel all the animations. So if you accidentally lay down and stand back up, you're not able to cancel the animation of standing back up once it's started, right? You can't jump out of it. Whereas if you're laying down, you can just jump out of laying down and you're able to, move along your merry way. But if you accidentally uh, do this mechanic improperly, you can kind of get yourself in weird situations. Like there, if I spammed it too many times, I laid down again, and then I accidentally dove again. So I think it's can be kind of complicated to pull off while you're doing other things, which I think is a pretty big disadvantage. Um, and yeah, so I mean, I don't think that there's really any advantages uh, that would be massive in PvP other than just being kind of weird, right? And people not expecting it. Um, and then on the disadvantage department, again, you're not picking up any extra iframes. You're actually losing iframes versus someone that's just dodging. So I think that there's not a massive benefit to actually be doing this in PvP. So I don't really think that it's necessarily a broken mechanic. It's just a weird one. Um, so yeah, that's the video. I can show you what it looks like in medium armor. It's again, it's the same thing, but now you just have the momentum of the medium dodge, which is not very fast. So yeah, it's not as good as laying down and doing it, or it's not as good as having the dodge roll, because the dodge roll is clearly faster than the medium dodge. So yeah, that's everything I know about the mechanic. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. I've done a decent bit of testing. I'm sure other people will break into it and try to figure out exactly how it's working. So, um, but that's where I'm at with this mechanic. I hope that people found it interesting. People are able to learn how to do it. And the only recommendation I would have is change your laydown button if you're having trouble getting all of the different button pushes. I've moved mine to my mouse and I can do it consistently almost every time. It's really not that difficult. And yeah, so thank you for watching the video and have a great day.